is Wendy with Next Level Board Games, and today we're going to unbox My City, a game by Reiner Kitsnia and published by Cosmos. So we are going to see what's inside. Now, My City is a legacy game, and if you're not familiar with what that is, that means it's a game that changes as you play it. You've probably heard of other games like it, like Charterstone, Pandemic, Legacy. Those are, every single one of those, there's a season 1, 2, and then they did 0 in the actual order. Those are all legacy games, as well as Clank Acquisitions Incorporated, if you've ever heard of that game, which is a very fun game. So legacy games are really fun because as you play, you and other players make changes either to player boards, to cards, to different, sometimes you're actually adding layers to the boards, like in Acquisitions Incorporated and Pandemic. Sometimes you're actually building out new islands and new territories, all different kinds of things, but the idea is that each time you play, the game changes slightly, and so do the rules. So let's see what's inside. Okay, so first we have a rule book, which is not very big. You'll see it's just a few pages, and I think that this is not a super complex game, but that it's more strategy. So it's gonna be easy to learn, but a little bit more difficult to do super well and to win all the time, because you're gonna be placing strategically, trying to place things on boards. And if you've ever played something like Karuba or Sheep and Thief, where you can only control so many pieces of it, sometimes it gets hard because you have or Tiny Towns is another example. You have the best laid plans, but then a card comes up you're not expecting. It's harder than you think it's going to be. So there should be 4 sets of each type of building, because each player gets a set of their own building, so 24. The yellow ones are residentials, the red ones are public, and the blue ones are industrial. So each player is going to get a set of these that'll be exactly the same, and there's 24 that each player is going to get between the 3 different types. So on the back, if you can see, there are different animals on here, and each player is going to be represented by 1 animal. So you'll get a set of tiles that have, the backs of each one will have your animal style. That will be your set of tiles for the entire game. So you can see, and they actually pop out pretty easily, what some of the sizes will look like that you're going to have to get, projectile pieces on your board. So you can see that they're going to be different shapes and sizes, and that's going to cover different pieces of your board. You're going to get more complicated ones. I can tell you right now, these are going to be harder to place than some others, right? Because you're going to, ideally they fit together perfect, but the thought that you would get those pulled 2 in a row, probably not going to happen. So that's what's going to make that more complicated. So those are the different buildings you're going to have access to. Then here's the 4 player boards with the animals up in the corner. So each player is going to choose one of these boards. That will be their board for the entirety of this game. This game is technically played over 24 episodes as a legacy game, and there are packets in here that will go with each episode that make that episode a little bit unique. When it's your turn and you're playing, everyone's sort of playing simultaneously. Basically, these buildings here, you're going to have a card that gets flipped over because there's a card that matches every one of these symbols, or these actual pieces. And when that one flips over, you find it in your stack and you have to place it. So like here, I could place this around the trees because the trees give you good points at the end. The rocks often are negative points. And you can't cover things like the mountains themselves, or the trees, the forest or the mountains, or across the river. But I could place this here, and that might be a really strategic move for me. So that's kind of that. The boards are double-sided. I'm not exactly sure what this side is used for, but my understanding is that this would be the way you would play for the legacy. This is perhaps the side for a non-legacy game, which you could actually start with and not play the legacy game to begin with. If, say, you had a group that you were saving that for and you wanted to play it beforehand, then you could play the non-legacy version first, which is kind of cool because a lot of the legacy games don't really have a mechanism to do that, play without the legacy piece, at least beforehand. So here's some more little tiles, more buildings. Again, the animal characters on the back, so you know who's what. They're also color-coded, which is really nice, so those will be easy to tell apart. Then, here are, besides a whole bunch of baggies to put stuff in, these are the little packets that manage the episodes. So, as I mentioned before, there's 24 episodes. Well, there's 8 of these packets. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, 8. Wow, I'm usually good at math. Okay. So there's 8 of these, and each one's going to cover 3 different episodes. So you don't, like any legacy game, you never want to open something that you're not told to open until you're told to open it, or you'll give away secrets. You'll kind of ruin it. So you got to keep your curiosity in check. So for first game, if you're playing the legacy version, you would open this one up and you're going to see this, some of the stuff that's going to apply to episodes 2 and 3, but you would, that's okay. Because, you know, it's the first 3, that's kind of how it works, but it's also keeping you away from everything else that's going to come later. So that's kind of fun. There's some secrets that are going to happen later. Most legacy games are like that. They might be different. Sometimes there's hidden stuff inside, like underneath of here. We've had games where there's things hidden underneath here or underneath the box top. There's been clues around the sides of the boxes for different things we've had. We've had cards hidden in here, or sometimes there's boxes like in Pandemic where you pull out new cubes and new characters, and the initiative often has new cards that have new baddie bads that you're trying to fight against. So all different kinds of things that legacy games introduce that make them fun and make them last over time. So these are some extra bags. And then these are your cubes for tracking your progress on your game board. Those start here when you start, and then you move them as you do positive and negative things. So that's all those are. Just little wooden cubes. The inside of the box is cute. Now you can see the inside is, it's all completely decorated, even and as well as the outside. And I definitely will be checking underneath of it later to see if there's anything under there, because this little insert will be easy to pop out. And then last but not least are the cards that match the shapes. So like there's going to be a card in here that matches every shape that you saw in the punch out boards that I had earlier. So for every one of these shapes, there's going to be a card that matches it. Like for instance, this card here is going to match this piece here. So these will get shuffled before each game. They'll get placed in the middle. Everybody will be playing the same game in essence, except for their choices of how they place the things on their board are what's going to vary and how their points are going to vary. So when you're in the middle of a game, everybody's going to end up basically playing with the same cards, except for what's going to change is how they put them on their board. So say I flip this card over, and there's 4 of these, 1 for each player animal. On the back of these, they'll match these different player animals. Each player will pick that up out of their stack of available tokens. And then what they're going to do is they're going to decide where they want to place it without placing it. And then simultaneously, everybody will place that piece unless they choose to pass and not place it. So nobody will see where anybody's putting the piece until they've actually placed it. Then that will be in the discard. And then the next card will get flipped over, and on and on and on until people either pass and, you know, decide to keep going, or they basically say, I'm bowing out, I'm not placing any more of these tokens. So, or the buildings. So then at that point, once everybody's done, you would trigger the end of game and you would count the points and then do rewards for who has the high scores, and you would set up for your next game. So that's pretty much how this plays. I think it's going to be, again, easy to learn and easy to get started and jump into. And it's going to be like a lot of other legacy games like this, where each time they get a little bit, they sort of build on the rules and get more and more complex and more and more strategic, which is a really fun game for anybody who's new into some of these types of games, because it gives you that chance to learn the rules and then just build onto it as you go. So we love playing these games. We have a lot of fun with these games. And you get so much time out of a game like this. You really do. It's a lot of fun. So that's pretty much everything that's in my city. So a bunch of building tokens, some player tiles, and a whole bunch of surprises yet to come. Thanks for watching Next Level Board Games.